Yesterday we had opening arguments on the King versus Burwell case, and just kind of paint what the implications potentially could be for the state of Michigan, depending on how that case is decided. At the heart of this argument is whether or not subsidies would be allowed to be provided through the federal exchanges. The state of Michigan is actually one of those states that opted for the federal exchange. If the case is decided in favor of the plaintiff, King in this case, and there's a similar case, Colbeck versus Burwell, but if it's decided in the favor of the plaintiff, those subsidies would no longer be allowed. Now, there's a lot of variations possible on the decision on how that's actually specified, but I want to make sure we understand from our colleagues what the implications of this are. Now, on the surface, it would seem to be that, well, if we don't get the subsidies, that's really going to hurt the citizens of Michigan. But I think it's important for people to know there's an additional provision in that law, in Section 5000A, that says if the personal household income, if the cost of a plan exceeds 9% of the personal household income for that, I think it's 9 or 8%, 8% exceeds 8% of the personal household income, then you are not subject to the mandate. In essence, anybody who cannot meet that threshold of finding a plan for less than 8% of their household income would not be subject to the mandate. Now, that's the essence of a get out of Obamacare free card. And for a lot of our citizens who are feeling the pinch of increasing premiums, increasing deductibles, that is a very good thing. And I just want to highlight to my colleagues, I think it's important that this so-called Affordable Care Act, which we're going to get a very explicit example of why it's so unaffordable, depending on how this Supreme Court case gets decided, needs to be conveyed to the ash heap of history. So I ask my colleagues, the decision is due out in June timeframe. From the state of Michigan perspective, I think it's important that we adopt what I like to call an exploit then repeal strategy, which makes sure that we exploit as many of the free market loopholes available inside the Affordable Care Act as possible, especially the Section 10,104 that allows for direct primary care services. Expand that market as much as possible so then when we finally get to the point where we can repeal the whole law, that'll be just a pinprick and not noticed by any of the citizens depending on good quality care that's affordable for their families.